Hello, this is Andrea Epteen, and I am the owner of Resolve Strategies LLC in Savannah, Georgia. Um, Thank you so much for tuning in to our next segment. And this segment is on sexual addiction, compulsivity, and also we're going to touch a little bit on sexual dysfunction. As you can see, today's a little bit different because we have a guest, and her name is Julia. Thank you so much for your willingness to participate today, and she wants to share a little bit of her story, which I think is, a great addition to be able to hear from somebody who has been through some of these things. Again, we're talking to an audience of individuals who are in early recovery, long-term recovery from process addictions, but also people who just are in pre-contemplation, kind of wondering maybe if their behaviors are kind of getting into addictive territory. And this is also for clinicians and people who want to learn a little bit more about this disease. So thanks for tuning in. So again, this is Julia, and I think she would like to start with sharing a piece that she wrote about her story.
I thought I could trust my feelings when so much had confused me in my life. I believed in what I could feel to be the truth, and it led me down a disastrous path. It felt normal in high school, wearing short plaid skirts, knee-high leather boots, and teasing the boys. Then it felt normal, boys flirting with me, wanting to be alone with me. Sometimes I felt nervous, and sometimes I did say no. I sought out the thrill of being chased, even if I didn't feel attracted to the person. Isn't that being a teenager, to have low self-esteem and seek out confidence? It felt normal to rationalize it in this way because I had no other way of explaining life to myself. It continued into college, where it felt normal to go for regular walks with the intention of walking by Nathan's house to see if he was home, and it felt normal that he never invited me into his house, only into his garage. It felt normal to be attracted to my teachers and fantasize about a secret relationship. It felt normal to want to leave the windows open as I undressed at night. And it felt normal that every relationship I started had a sexual element to it, or else I didn't feel of any value. My feelings are not a wiser part of me, but for years I let them guide my decisions. When my thoughts were unsure, I still had feelings and desires. I mistook that to mean that my desires knew a key to happiness that my thinking couldn't perceive. Looking back at my so-called happiness, I can see there was always a harsher reality than what I saw at the time. I'll give you 2 examples. It felt rewarding to stay up most of the night, messaging strangers online, having sexual conversations dotted with casual conversation. I yawned as I typed the words that I expected to excite the person. Rarely my words matched the truth. I was doing whatever I could to feel loved and valuable. I thought by keeping these strangers' attention throughout the night that I must have been important to them and that it was a cure for the neglect I often felt. My good intentions were malicious to myself, depriving myself of sleep, relaxation, and forcing my body to stay in a state of alertness and adrenaline would lead to health problems. And all while I used these men and let them use me, we were never important to each other. They were all replaceable. Another time that my feelings misled me was at an at-work relationship. This was a boundary I didn't think I would cross, yet I did it. It felt normal to have a sense of pride when my manager had sexual relations with me. To have someone important be interested in me felt like it could equate to me being someone important too. What it actually achieved was a strained relationship between my supervisor and myself, because I wasn't focused on my work performance as much as I was focused on the manager. While I was trying to feel important, I was assuring that I would not perform well enough at work to be considered for any type of promotion. A harsher reality was that I was working against myself the entire time I thought it was helping me. As for the relationship with my manager, I found that his promises were lies, and he raped me. I wasn't mad about the rape for years. I had felt like a failure for much of my life, and I was able to rationalize even something that horrible to being another normal day. Sexual addiction doesn't happen to bad people, but it led me to rationalize my bad behavior. I was trying to find happiness among the darkness through desperate external attempts of fulfilling my needs. I avoided my overwhelming emotional pain and tried to live through physical interactions. I lost my marriage, I had no real friends, and I abused and belittled myself. What I wanted was to matter to someone and feel a connection with people without being emotionally vulnerable, something I've learned is impossible. Since I started my recovery, I've grown into a more healthy version of myself by learning new skills and relearning what I thought I once knew. At 31 years old, I'm learning what the words intimacy, forgiveness, friendship, and happiness mean to my sober self. The definitions that I had when I was active in my sexual addiction and the definitions I've learned in my sobriety contradict themselves, like much of my life during active addiction when compared to my sober life. Intimacy is not an orgasm, but feeling a bond of safeness and warmth with a trusted person. Forgiveness is not avoiding the situation or the person that hurt me. Forgiveness is letting go of the emotions inside because they will continue to hurt me. And in order to protect myself, I will put in boundaries in place of avoidance. Friendship is not idolization from either party. It is laughter, support, agreements, and disagreements. Happiness is not a thing someone can find one day, nor is it a destination. It's a lifestyle. And that lifestyle is recognizing those things I desired before, like approval, self-worth, finding love, and giving those things to myself. I'm still an addict, but I'm finding peace where there used to be chaos. Now I spend my weekends playing board games with my friends and being creative rather than checking messages or seeking out people that will use me. I sleep at night and my head doesn't ache from stress. Before, I would repeat as if it was my mantra that I hated being me. And today I will tell you that I'm goofy, intelligent, creative, happy, a recovering sex addict, and I love being me.
So we just finished hearing Julia's story, and I know I was moved by it, and I would assume our audience was as well. So I just wanted to thank you for, bringing such a powerful story to, an audience that might also be really hurting and wondering and questioning what's going on with them with regards to their behaviors that might feel out of control. So again, I just want to thank you and tell you how proud I am of you for being able to share such a intimate part of your life with people, because I think that it is a really important part of recovery to be able to offer your story, and especially your recovery story, which offers, hope, I think, to people who feel very stuck. So, and I also wanted to say that there were a few parts of that really stuck out for me personally and were, just emotionally charged for me, maybe for the audience as well. But I would like for you, if you don't mind, to go back to the first sentence of your second page.
Sexual addiction doesn't happen to bad people, but it has led me to rationalize my bad behavior.
Yeah, I think that's huge because we've kind of, I think, tapped into it a little bit in the past two segments, and I know this is only our third segment, but we're always talking about process addictions and those types of behaviors, and it does not happen to bad people. We really try to understand this as a disease concept, and that nobody wakes up wanting this for their life. It happens to amazing people, beautiful, talented, valuable individuals who need to hear your story and need to understand that their behaviors don't in any way dictate who they are and what the disease is taken away from them. So again, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So I also wanted to take the opportunity while we have Julia with us, who's been so amazing and willing to share her story with us. I wanted to also say that if you are one of those individuals or those viewers who, have tuned in because you're still kind of in that pre-contemplative state, kind of wondering, questioning, is my sexual behavior becoming compulsive? Is it becoming addictive in nature? And so if you are tuning in because of that, I want you to understand that you might have a tendency at this stage in, an early contemplative process of recovery to listen to Julia's story and fixate more on the differences in your story and hers instead of the similarities. And I want to tell you it's very important to focus on the similarities, because every person, each and every person, is special and unique, and their experiences are individualized and special and unique. But the disease itself is not special, it is not unique, it looks absolutely the same in every person. So that's why it's important to focus on, when you're hearing someone's story, what are the similarities? Have I ever felt similar emotions? Have I ever experienced similar consequences? Have I ever felt, out of control, however, ever done things that I really thought I would never do. So please, if you are a viewer and you're tuning in, please focus on the similarities of the story. Thank you. So some Q&A, questions and answers. I know that in our second segment, the last segment, we talked about, I gave a teaser question that someone had written in for this week's segment, which is on sexual addiction and sexual dysfunction. The teaser question was the difference between sexual addiction and sexual dysfunction. Well, there are some very specific differences, and sexual dysfunction can be a little bit more in the physical realm instead of in the physiological realm of actions and reactions. So sexual dysfunction can be physical, and it's something that we often see, over the years with age and things like that. And it can definitely affect people mentally and emotionally, and you definitely want to seek treatment for that, because it can really start to impact the way that you live out your life, and it can start to creep into other areas. And then it can also become kind of a performance anxiety and a performance issue. And all of these sexual dysfunctions are kept in a special separate category from the addiction, because again, one is more physical, which leads to emotional distress, and the other one is physiological, which leads to emotional distress. So when you're looking at the compulsions and compulsions leading to an addictive disease, you're looking at more of a physiological realm. However, just like any aspect of mental health or addiction recovery, where we experience stress and confusion mentally and emotionally, we're going to be impacted physically. Just like the physical can impact the mental and emotional, it kind of works in this cycle. So to go forward, like, sexual addiction can lead absolutely to sexual dysfunction, and vice versa. So they definitely play in together, and so oftentimes we do see them as co-occurring disorders, so that we're treating them together, seeing how one has impacted the other, and they can effectively be treated together. But oftentimes you will see it with compulsive behavior, like pornography and masturbation, and how that compulsive behavior, as it grows and intensifies, they're not able to perform sexually, so eventually it will have a physical impact, and a sexual dysfunction like erectile dysfunction will eventually become an issue as well. So I hope that answers that question, and again, that was the teaser from the previous segment. I have some other questions, and I'm going to go through them relatively quickly this time, because I know that we've been blessed to have Julia, so our time's a little bit limited. The next question that I have is says, my pornography habit has caused me to lose my job. Does this mean I have an addiction? It does. And I love the question, and I think whoever wrote in must have watched our previous segment, because we actually talk about that. We talk about it with chemical addiction, use, misuse, and dependency. We also talk about it with behavioral addictions. By the time this is showing up in the workplace and you're experiencing negative consequences, not just in the home and with the family or legally, but if it's showing up at work, please do go ahead and schedule an assessment and go ahead and get some help. So the third question today is, honestly, it's not quite a fully actualized question. It just says masturbation / trauma. So I'll try to read into that. I hope I'm answering this as a question, but let's put it this way. If someone has experienced any kind of specific trauma or any kind of traumatic event, oftentimes the brain is then re-hardwired, and any kind of process addiction or behavior can become very addictive and will be used to self-soothe or to cope or to avoid the realities that come from that trauma. So I know I'm reading into this, like I said, it's masturbation and trauma. So masturbation specifically could easily be something that someone would use to self-soothe if they had experienced trauma in their past or in their recent past. Okay, hope that answers that question. I think we've got one more. Question number 4 is, where should I go if I think I have a sexual dysfunction? My recommendation to you, if you are struggling with a sexual dysfunction, dyspareunia, anorgasmia, vaginismus for women, any kind of erectile dysfunction, and performance anxiety for men, just to name a few, I would definitely seek out someone who is probably like ASECT certified sex therapist like myself, who understands, the human sexual makeup and how that relates mentally, emotionally, physiologically, and also how that impacts the physical self and vice versa. So definitely look up someone who has a background in sexual dysfunction. Okay, and you just you make an assessment, go in, and I feel like you'll be grateful that you did. All right, by the time you're questioning a sexual dysfunction, you can pretty much guarantee you've got one. Okay. And actually, there is one last question. How do I know if I have a sexual addiction problem? Well, I'm going to go back to, just kind of a rule of thumb for me, but if my continued behavior is causing negative consequences and it's impacting my life, I need to look at that as an addictive behavior, because it means that even though I don't want to do something, or I know it's going to cause harm to me, I'm following through with it anyway. So that's when you're getting into that compulsion and that addictive cycle of behavior. So, continuing to do the same thing over and over, expecting different results. Definition of insanity, right? That's about the time that you need to go ahead and again look up somebody who has experience in process addictions, and definitely schedule an assessment. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks again to Julia. You're amazing. I'm so grateful to have you here. So the next topic that we have is going to be coming out in August. So stay tuned. We'll have another great segment talking about the identification and treatment of process disorders. Please visit our website, which is www.resolveprocessaddiction.com, and write in any questions that you have, or any follow-up from this segment, any questions that you have either for myself or for Julia and her story. We really look forward to hearing from you, and we want the feedback. So I hope you do tune in. We have for some upcoming events, I just want to put it out there again, that August 24th through 26th, we have the Men's Healthy Sexuality Workshop. Please do call, and again, if you are in at least early to long-term recovery and you feel like you're stable enough for a really intensive recovery workshop, we would love to have you. You can sign up through the website. Also, December 14th through 16th is just process addictions across the board. We're having a very intensive workshop for that, and that will cover all types of different eating disorders and behavioral addictions, compulsive behaviors, including like kleptomania and things like that. So again, we've got these upcoming workshops. We'd love for you to get involved. And I guess that's it. So thank you so much for tuning in. And again, I'm Andrea Epting with Resolve Strategies, and wishing you recovery.